happy Sunday morning, well, afternoon. Um, so this is episode number 2. I was really happy that everyone was so excited and gave me really great feedback on the last Coffee with Stacey. So it's going to be a semi regular-ish thing. And the one comment that I got that seemed pretty universal was that folks were not a fan of my background. Not a big fan of the big white background. So um, I'm somewhere slightly more interesting. So there's some books. The thing that is a limiting factor is you may or may not know this about me, but I'm very light sensitive. So our house doesn't have a lot of artificial lighting, and in the summer we have a lot of windows, so in the summer it's nice. Today it's raining cats and dogs, like literally, like I think I just saw like a beagle fall from the sky, and it's pouring, which is good for the garden, but really bad for lighting. And it's about 40 degrees, and so yeah, so filming outside is not really an option. Um, our living room has a 40-watt light bulb in it. And so it's because at the end, like a lot of lighting, like if I'm outside in the sun without sunglasses or if I'm in really bright lighting, I'll actually get migraines. I think it has something to do with these blue eyeballs. See, my husband has blue eyes too, and so we both can function in really low lighting. We had a Japanese friend of ours come over who obviously had black, like really dark eyes, and he's like, "I can hardly see in your house," which is sort of just how it is. So we're here in the dining room. It has some light fixture left over by the previous owner, which has two 60-watt light bulbs in it. So this is the brightest spot in the house, especially when it's raining. And it has a little bit of cookbook pizzazz in it. So that's how it's going to be. This might be as exciting as it gets, folks. I did have a friend, so people watched my first episode, great. And I had a friend who I went to dinner with that night, and she brought me her HD video camera. She's like, "Here, you probably want to use this." And I was like, "No, no, no. I do have a for real video camera, but the point of this thing, I want to keep it totally casual. Like, it's really just the webcam." And I hope everyone can appreciate that the casualness is what will allow it to be more frequent. And so I'm not in high def or 3D or any other, exotic functions, but it's what will allow this to keep coming more often, which is good. So anyway, today's Sunday. Yesterday I went to Yarn Over, which I told you about. It's a fiber festival. I know it's a thing in Minnetonka, which is I had never been to Minnetonka, and everyone talks about it like it's a place, and the slippers, Minnetonka, like those little moccasins. That's what they're called, named after. So I thought it was this place like really far away. It's actually just like 3 exits away from downtown, so it's not that far. It's like a 15-minute drive, and it was in a high school, and I had no idea what to expect. But the parking lot was completely full, like people were parking on the streets, and it was packed. So it was actually a really huge thing, which was great. The day before, I picked up Marley from the airport, Marley Bird. She's famous. That's how cool I am. I pick up famous people from the airport. And we had coffee with Brenda Anderson, who wrote Beastly Crochet. So we had a great time, us crochet ladies getting together, and then I delivered Marley to Yarn Over for the required dinner, only 5 minutes late because Google lied. It did not know what was up with the directions. So anyway, that's totally my fault. Shh, don't tell the organizers. Marley was very nice, and she said, "My friend got lost," and she didn't mention it was me, so maybe that won't mar my chances for, ever being related to them ever again. So on Saturday, so there was a Friday night thing, which I didn't go to. And like that was part of like the registering and all that stuff. I just went on Saturday to the market. And the market was like a market you would see at like Stitches or whatever, with lots of different vendors and stuff like that. And it was pretty cool. And so one person that was there was Annie Modisett. So she's a designer who lives in Minneapolis, well, you know, the Twin Cities area. And she well, normally just did designy stuff, but now she started dyeing yarn, which is really cool. So I picked up this skein. Can you see it? So her new line is called Mod Work. I'll put up a link. And this is a gradient yarn, and it's really pretty. I don't know if, yeah, the colors are showing good. It's grays and pinks, and it's a gradient. And so I just want to, wait, I'm sorry, I'm deciding. I'll knit. Ha! I had some requests for knitting, but I don't know how well I'll do my talking, because these are short rows people on this thing I'm doing, so we'll see. So a gradient, okay, so let's talk about a gradient versus something like self-striping. So when I teach my Kool-Aid dyeing class, I usually show you how to do something that's called, you know, like a self-striping yarn. So you literally take a chunk, dye it, you take the next chunk and you dye it. And you can dye it in colors that are close to, you know, close to each other in a gradient-like fashion, but that's not really a true gradient. And so what you want to do to actually get a real gradient is to have the colors fade into each other. And that looks to be like what this yarn is. So you're probably not really going to get to see, the camera's backwards, it's really tricky, see it too well. But there's gray in the middle, and then there's a bit that's actually like a really dark pink, which is like the gray pink together, and then it goes out to pink, and then it goes out to like a white and a gray. So this really does look like a true gradient, which is hard to do. The way it's done, and I think I can tell by this skein that's happening here. Do you see how they're wavy? See, there you go. See, they're a little wavy, the strand of yarn. So it's done by dyeing what's called a blank, which is a like a something that's been knit up in stockinette already, and that's how you would buy it from the yarn manufacturer, and then you would paint the dye onto it. And the reason it's wavy is because it's been unraveled. So I was actually an eensy bit worried when I got this that the rippling of the yarn would sort of show up in my final knitting, because sometimes when you unravel a skein of yarn, the zigzag sort of shows up in your stitch definition. So far it doesn't seem like to be a problem, and it's not like when I hold the strand, can you see it like that? It's not kinky, so it just for some reason is how it looks in the skein, and it's not really showing up in the yarn, which is good. So I'm excited about this. It's the only complaint, I don't want to say complaint, but the only complaint that I have, and it totally has nothing to do with this yarn particularly. It's just sort of a trend that's happening, I think, with a lot of indie dyers, and this happened with my dragonfly shawl, which I'll say something about also. So when you buy a commercial skein of sock yarn, it's usually 440 yards. And so most patterns are written for a shawl or whatever for 440 yards. Well, an indie dyer, if they're going to hand dye something and sell it, it either needs to be much more expensive, and people don't like that. So what tends to happen is that they make it be less yardage. So a lot of people are comfortable paying, you know, in the $20s-ish for a skein of yarn. So instead of an indie dyer making a 440 skein of yarn that would have to cost into the 30s, what they'll do is they'll have, and I mean, this is just, I'm assuming this, I actually don't, you know, this is my yarn economics talking. I actually haven't asked about this, but, you know, basically, the yarn, to get it at a price point that suits people, it has to have less yardage. So this is 386 yards, which is totally cool. Like, I mean, I don't mean to imply that you're getting ripped off or anything, but if you're looking for patterns on Ravelry, you'll notice a lot of patterns are made for these commercial yarns that are 440 skeins. So not 440 skeins, 440 yards in a skein. And so something like this, like, you don't want to, like, I don't know, you don't want to buy two because, you know, you'd have way too much yardage. Maybe you could do a really big shawl, and you can't really just add on like 10, you know, 10 yards of gray. It's sort of tricky to know what to do with. So what I'm knitting, I just found this pattern on Ravelry. Oh, I should have showed you when I was at the end of the row. Darn biscuit. Okay, so I'll squish it. It's called Heartbreak. It's super cute. You know, I'm into these garter stitch, you know, shawls that are just like nice, relaxing knitting. And so what it is it's, see this black, it has these black triangles, and then it has these triangles of the main color. So this main color is going to do a gradient, which is going to be really cool. And the black is, it only takes like 200 yards of a black, and so that means the entire shawl takes like 600 yards, but it's good enough yardage that I can use this yarn with, which I'm really happy about. So what I was going to say about my dragonfly shawl, so my dragonfly fibers shawl was a very similar situation. It was actually a sport weight, and so it only had 340 yards or something like that. Anyway, so I started knitting Boneyard by Stephen West, which his shawls you can really do any size with. You just keep doing more repeats. And so I finished the whole skein of yarn. I actually did finish it. I showed you last time that I couldn't finish it because I didn't leave enough to bind off, but I ripped back the rows and then finished it. And it's cute, it's good, but it's like only barely big enough to be a shawl that you'd wear. Like, I like wearing my shawls, like this is a triangle shawl I'm wearing. It's Derecho by Laura Ayler, who's one of my favorite designers. I just love her. And this, see it? It's a giant triangle. And I like putting them on like this way and then going like that, sort of like a bandana, I don't know, cowgirl look. So the new shawl that I knit, the Boneyard, just isn't big enough for me to do that. So it'll be one of the over the shoulder things. To be honest, I'm not sure if I'll really wear it that often because then like the little thing falls off your shoulder, and I'm really thinking about what to do with that guy. But once you finish it, you like want to keep it, and you don't want to unravel it. I don't know. Still thinking about it. Mull it over with my coffee. So anyway, the upshot of it is to look at how much yardage there is on the yarn, and just be aware that when you go with the indie dyers, you're getting a really cool yarn that you can't get commercially, but you also have to have your thinking brain on about how to make one skein work for something that's going to be practical to wear and not just like a little tiny little thing that you're never really going to get a lot of use out of. So that was yesterday. All that happened yesterday. Well, yeah, all that happened yesterday. And I started knitting. See? Last night was a by the fire kind of night because it's still sort of that cold. But the internets tell me that we might be out of the last frost in Minnesota. So daringly, very daringly, I planted a couple of my little kale seedlings outside. I didn't plant all of them. I can just show them to you. So I started these seeds inside. Oh wait, are these the happy looking ones? Wait, these are, yeah, I'll show you the happy looking ones. I have some happy looking ones and I have some sad looking ones. So these are my little kale seedlings, and all the ones that are missing are the ones that I planted outside. So they're just like little babies, you know, you're just like, go outside. So, I started them indoors like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they're looking really cute, but some of them, I don't know if you can see, like his little leaf is looking a little yellow, and I think that's because they're just feeling really tied up in their little plant world, you know, like their roots want to grow. So taking a risk, I'm putting some of them outside, and well, I hope they don't die. They're getting rained on right now. First thing I woke up this morning and I put on my rain boots and I put on like my big umbrella and I went outside to go look at my little kale plants, and they seem like they're doing fine. So they'll be okay. Let's all just hope they'll be okay. So in other news, what else is going on? So I'm getting ready for the Kit Club. A problem I've had with the Kit Club, so here's how it usually goes. I put in a pattern, and the pattern is usually one that exists as a fresh stitches pattern. And but I'm adding like a twist to it. So you don't really follow the pattern instructions exactly, but I want you to have the pattern so like you can make, normal things. So, oh, now the secret's out. Last time was Rust the chick. So it's a chick that turns inside out into an egg. But what we did was felt it. And I gave you the crochet hook so that for the size that would be for felting. And then so felting shrinks differently height-wise and width-wise. So to keep the dimension, I changed a few rows of the pattern, and that was on the special instructions on the website. So you have the pattern that you can do later and use, but you also have to go to the website to get the special instructions. So I put the website on the bag, like that the kit comes in. It's come to my attention that not everyone notices that the sticker's on the bag, which is a real problem because you're not actually, if you don't go to the website, there's some sense in which you're not really getting the full kit, like you're missing a lot of it. So I reached out to my Ravelry group for help. It's a tricky situation because like a lot of the solutions that seem like a good idea, like business cards, for example, are hard to actually put into practice. So first of all, business cards are pretty pricey, and you also have to have them printed in advance, which means it's one more thing that I have to have done in advance, and you can only order them in quantities of 250. And so, would I print the whole website on the card and then just throw away a certain number of business cards? Anyway, it was all getting very complicated. So I got these neon labels. I'm really hoping this is the solution to the problem, because I want everyone to get their, legit information, but these are neon. And the other suggestion people had was to stick it right on the pattern. And so I felt iffy about it. I really like putting it on the bag because it's like, hey, before you even open the kit, look at this thing. But I accept the point that others are making that people throw away the bag. So we'll put it on the pattern. I'm excited about this innovation. I really hope it works, because it just makes me so sad. Like, I put so much effort into making these like really amazing like special kits, and then like now I know that some people haven't really been doing all of the amazingness, and I just feel sad for them, because it could have been even more amazing. So I think that'll work. Fingers are crossed. So business cards. The whole theme of today is conferences. You might not know there was a theme for today because I've already been rambling probably for the entire time I said I would record, but there's a theme, and it's business cards. It's not business cards, it's conferences and business cards. So I'm going to TNNA, which is a conference for designers and yarn companies and people, it's an industry conference. So you can't go buy a skein of yarn. You go and you buy hundreds of skeins of yarns to fill your entire shop. And so it's something I've gone to probably for 6 or 7 years now, but it's a big expense. So today I'm going to be talking about, for conferences and things like stitches, if you were going as a crocheter, how do you decide if it's worth the expense of going and what do you get out of it? Because that's a question a lot of people grapple with, because it is like a really big commitment to go. As a segue into that, I have a business card story. So I only have 25 business cards left, Fresh Stitches business cards. And I realized this last week. So I had to order new business cards to take to TNNA, and they had to get here in time before I leave, right? So those were my constraints. So Vistaprint, who I traditionally get my business cards from, they're kind of slow in the shipping. So they have really great prices, but like it's not strange for it to take 2 weeks for the thing to get there. So I tweeted out to people to see who they use. And a lot of people were really into Moo cards. So Moo cards are like, they have the really little like half cards, but they also have full-size cards, and their shtick is that they print like up to 25 or maybe 50 different designs on the back. So like someone's not only getting your information, they're getting like a graphic representation of what it is you do, and they're very cute and they're very trendy. And their website said, we offer rush shipping, like 24 hours, your order's out the door. And I was like, okay, fine. And they were having a sale. So I've never ordered from Moo before because they're really expensive. Like, so I think Vistaprint wanted, and of course it's slightly different because whether it's one-sided or two-sided, but Vistaprint was about like $20 for 250 cards. And Moo wanted $30 for 100 cards, and that was with the 25% off sale. So we're talking like massively more expensive business cards. But I thought like, hey, you know, I am sort of in a rush. It says that they ship quickly. Everyone says they're amazing. I'll just get this 100, just get me through TNNA. It's a bit of a splurge, but I'll do it. So the other day I was at their website and like picking out all of their stuff. And like, I just want to say, I don't mind paying more for a quality product. Like, that's what I hope when people buy my patterns, is that they're willing to pay, you know, money to get a quality product. And I certainly don't mind paying more to get a good product. So I was content to pay my $30 for 100 cards. So I spent like a half hour like picking out the photo that's going to be on the back and this and that and this and that. And then I get to the end and I'm ready to check out, and shipping, first class shipping is $8. Now I ship a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff. I know first class shipping in the United States is not $8. But okay, that's fine. That's how these things roll. And then I look at the arrival date and it's in 2 weeks. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? And I look at the express shipping date, which they're charging $14.99 for, and it still wouldn't be there in time. And I was like, what in the world's going on? I thought they said they offer rush shipping. Ah, there's the catch. They offer rush shipping, or they offer rush processing. The rush processing for your order to be out in 24 hours is $14.99. So in order for my business cards to arrive on time, I would have to pay the $14.99 for rush processing. And then, even then, the first class mail apparently wouldn't get them to me in a week. I don't know what deal they have with the post office that's not functional. I would also have to pay for the express shipping. So the shipping would be more than the $30 for the price of my business cards. So it would be $60 for me to get my 100 business cards, which is a lot. And so I think they're really hoping that by the time you've gone through like the more than half hour to click and pick all of your right like backings and everything, that you'll just go through with it. But man, I couldn't. Like, if you're looking for business advice from me, it's like cut down on costs when you can, you know, and $60 for some business cards was just not happening. And I don't usually say really bad things about companies, but that was just like such a misleading and let down experience that I was just like, $60 for 100 business cards. And what gets me is that it was so sneaky, right? Like, we offer fast shipping 24 hours, and like, they do offer it. And for some reason, the post office doesn't ship as quickly for them as it does like for the rest of the country. So that was a thing. I think I'll just go to like a print shop in person and maybe have slightly less than fancy business cards. Because really, people just need to know my email address and we'll call it a day. So that's one of the expenses. That's one of the things that people mull around about this time of year, getting ready to go to TNNA. So what are some things you want to think about when you're deciding to go? So for me, it's, do I go to TNNA, which is this industry conference where I sort of like network with people and meet companies, maybe get jobs, things like that. For hobby knitters and crocheters, you might be wondering, like, is it worth going to a class like Stitches, or is it worth going to a weekend retreat? How do you decide if that expense, because it really is an expense. You have to get yourself there. You're usually in a conference center where the hotel rooms are really expensive. And then there's the cost of registering for the class or the fee for the guild or whatever it is that you're doing. Um, and the thing that makes it so hard is it's not like buying business cards, right? When you buy business cards, you know you pay X amount and I'm getting 100 business cards to take home. The problem with well, it's not the problem, the good thing about like a conference is you don't know what you're going to get, so um, like, and I learn almost everything I know from going to conferences. So, um, about 3 years ago, I was talking to Stephanie from Space Cadet Creations, and she was like, "Why don't you make kits?" Good idea, Stephanie. And so I'm in debt to her for bringing that up, but it came about because I was talking to her in this industry setting, and it's something that we don't have time to do in our normal lives. Um, People who come to Stitches, like, they may have struggled with knitting with double points forever, and then they take a class and all of a sudden they know how to do it and they can go home with that knowledge. So what makes it really hard in evaluating the cost is deciding, like, is sort of factoring out like what you would get out of it, because it could be something that's really difficult to put a price tag on. Like, is it worth $60 knowing how to knit on double points for the rest of your life? Probably, but you don't know before you go what you're going to get. So there's a couple suggestions I have. So the first suggestion I have is you can't always think about them as, oh, I'm paying X and I'm getting this one thing, because they don't really work that way. But I try and think of it as like either a vacation or like, I always say, like, just try it once. And if it totally wasn't worth it, you don't have to do it ever again, and you lost X amount of money. But you never know until you go how worthwhile it's going to be. So I really do recommend people give these things a shot. There are a lot of ways to cut down the expense. So one thing you can do, so the first time I went to TNNA, I worked for Noni Designs. And so I translated, they're the felted bags. I translated a lot of the felted bags into the crochet instructions. And I helped Nora, owns Noni, with her booth. So she paid me money and covered my travel costs to help her do things in her booth. That is the exact same thing you can do at Stitches. If you have a yarn shop that's going to sell stuff, ask if they need help in the booth. The pay isn't going to be great. Like, you're not really earning a real hourly wage, but you're getting rid of the amount of cost that it would be for you to go. So you can check out the vendor list, see if there's anyone who needs help. Because these shows are crazy and sometimes people really do need some help. Another thing you can do is check out Ravelry to see who else is going and see if you can split a hotel room. Or even just check out the forums if you're not comfortable splitting a hotel room with a stranger, and seeing where people stay, because you don't have to stay in the conference center or the convention center, whatever it's called. A lot of times, especially if you're driving and there's a hotel a mile away, that's somewhere that you can stay. And cut down on the cost of the trip. Another thing that you can do is you don't always have to do everything that the conference offers. So like at Stitches, if you go and you pay for your airfare or travel, and you pay for the hotel, and you pay to take a full load of classes, and you pay for the dinner, like, it's a lot. But the first year you can go and you can go to the market, and you don't have to take a bunch of classes. You can take a market session, which is a much cheaper alternative to a full 3-hour class. And you can do that without incurring this huge cost. And then you can see for the next year whether you'd like it or not. Yeah, and for TNNA, there's all these other weird expenses, like, people put together portfolios and business cards, and like, so I'm doing a book signing, so I like sign all these little book plates so that people can put them in their books, and like, there's all this other prep work. And it's one of those things where you're sort of like, Like it's really exhausting and you're sort of like, why am I doing this? But every time I go, it's an incredibly valuable experience. I get to talk to people in real life that I don't usually get to talk to. Um, and it's always incredibly worth it for me. So that's not like, there's no formula to say if something's worth doing or not. But I would encourage you, like, especially if you're looking to pick up some new skills or maybe looking to meet new people, trying out one of these knitting workshops, knitting or crochet retreats, or conferences, because it can just be a doorway to opening up all these things that you never really thought of doing before. So I'm gonna stop there because it's already been a half hour. But I hope you enjoyed chatting and knitting with me today on what's a rainy Sunday morning for me. And I will see you next time. See you. Have a good week.